Well, you know what?
Just being honest.
This is a podcast where we all got nothing because it's Friday.
We're taking a page from Seinfeld. That was a show about nothing. We're a podcast about nothing.
Yeah, we're a podcast about nothing. People's like, "Oh, what's it like to be on the NerdBrand podcast? Is it in an interview? Do you guys do this?" It's like, nope, we do nothing. That's the magic. Welcome to the NerdBrand podcast, everybody. Today is going to be a day where we're going to talk about how you can tell a story like Pixar for your brand. So we just kind of wanted to work in Pixar because we like Pixar. So today on the podcast, I got myself, got Mitch, got John, and we got Josh Suter from the Chamber of St. Matthews. So today's show, we're talking about storytelling and Pixar. Your brand needs to engage in this type of marketing as paid advertising is increasing. Typical brochure copy doesn't work for all brands. Storytelling engages your audience at an emotional level to capture their attention. Found a quote here from Docter, I believe is how I pronounce it. Puts it perfectly. What you're trying to do when you tell a story is to write about an event in your life that made you feel something in a particular way. And what you're trying to do when you tell a story is to get the audience to have that same feeling. And so we believe this can work for business. So think when you're in a chamber or your networking event, tell me about your business or other related questions, and a story can probably better engage and become more memorable. So as our guest is a super fan of Pixar and works at the St. Matthews Chamber of Commerce, he's the Director of Membership and Business Relations. We're going to let him have the floor for a little bit, introduce himself, and plug the chamber and some things coming up because you guys are about to go live.
We are. I'm excited, man. So as they've said already, my name is Josh Suter. I'm the Director of Membership and Business Relations for the Chamber of St. Matthews. We're about 1,300 members located in suburb of Louisville, Kentucky, if you will. Second largest chamber in Louisville. Myself, I came into the chamber world literally by fluke. I had been a member of a chamber, I guess a member of the previous chamber I worked for, and they had a job opening, and I went, plan events, get paid to drink, hang out with people, sounds fun, let's do it. And that's kind of how I got into the chamber world.
I like how that's your list of requirements there.
Just being honest.
Paid to drink. You kind of just apply.
How can it be, right?
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 3 years in my previous chamber and then came to St. Matthews in 2016, although it feels like about 1955 because it's been a long couple of years. But, aside from work, I'm married with 2 kids, and obviously I could say that Pixar is because of them, but that would be a bold-faced lie. Because quite frankly, I'm a Toy Story fan and have followed Toy Story since I was, teenager-ish in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And have rode that roller coaster ride with Toy Story. And number 4.
We're all nerds here.
What's that?
Yeah. We're all nerds here. Don't hold back.
That's right.
But, the 4th one about killed me. I was not prepared for the way that one came to an end. But, always just kind of watch Pixar movies, always kind of been my jam. And honestly, I've worked it into my personal brand a little bit. So, most of my chamber members know if we're going to do a Disney-related night, I'm going to dress up like Woody. That's a given.
I think you might be
awesome.
The second cosplayer that we've had on the show. The other one wasn't quite a cosplayer. He just kind of did it for a birthday party, but it was the last show we had up with Scott Smith.
Costumes are part of all things the Chamber of St. Matthews. Every Friday morning we do this event called Coffee Chat, and there's always a theme and there's always costumes involved. This morning was you pick your own theme. And I'm like, what in the world am I going to do? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to dress up like a member of a boy band. So literally I put a wig on, I had on a plain t-shirt, and I was ready to sing. Of course they went, you're not allowed to do that.
You can sing here if you want. Go ahead.
That's a bad idea, man.
You've got the floor.
So fast.
I wanted to hear it. Jason knows all the boy band songs. Well, no, it's probably Mitch.
No,
No. I tell you what, though, I said,
You know,
kind of, but see, kind of as an extension of the whole boy band thing, what's really big now is the Asian boy band thing, which is K-pop and J-pop. I mean, it's huge. And I don't know how it happened, but it's
Twitter.
kind of incredible.
Twitter.
I guess my teenager knows more about that than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what you got to look forward to, John?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I look forward to the K-pop.
Yeah.
I mean,
you could be dancing in your living room.
My oldest daughter's in her early mid-20s, and her best friend has K-pop stuff all over her bedroom. And this is, she's not a teenager anymore. It's kind of insane.
Hey, you like what
Hopefully
you like.
she's not listening.
Well,
She's cool. She's cool.
That's usually what we say, though, about what a nerd is. It's not what you love, it's how you love it. So,
right.
I mean, that qualifies, at any age. I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's stuff that comes out that might be a little childish, but if it came out, I'm there. Like things like Transform, like animation. I still like animated movies and shows. And some of the things that they're trying to produce and come out with on some of the streaming services, I'm like, all right, I'm down with that. And, looking forward to it. I mean, there's this isn't animation. This is I don't know, maybe it's taking a turn or something, but I think today Lucifer has new shows coming out on Netflix, which I don't know if it's a season 6 or what, because that show went like they pretty much flat out canceled it, and then the fans fought to bring it back, and that's Warner Brothers property. A lot of people don't realize that's a comic book. It's the same series. Like if you know The Watchmen from the sad face with the bloody thing on it. I mean, there was
Smiley face. It was a smiley.
Was it smiley face? Yeah, it was a smiley. See, I'm not a Watchmen fan, so I'll say that. But because I'm sorry. Send your hate mail. Send your hate mail to Chamber St. Matthews. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't send that.
Why does it always come back to Zack Snyder on this podcast?
I don't know, because he just released that zombie movie, and it was kind of like a 2.5-hour mess, but I digress. Because, we're talking about stories, right? So you don't want your story, you don't want to make people fall asleep for 2 hours. So you don't want to be at a chamber event and, hey, tell me about your business.
That doesn't happen with us. There's too much alcohol involved.
I don't know. If you don't have enough, then you do get sleepy.
Not a problem. We got
Not
you
a problem. You always got enough. Listen, if you want to be, sounds like that's the advertisement.
You want to drink, eat, and meet people, we got you covered.
That's actually a pretty good slogan. That is what you look for in a chamber.
There you go.
Hey, I'm okay with that. I mean, after the year that everybody's had and being able to get back out and network again, I mean, it's kind of like, business is serious, but if you take it too seriously and you miss out on all the fun, that's kind of the purpose why you want to start your own business. You want to get away from that corporate sort of pressure, stress type of thing. So when you're doing your own business, if you're in business for yourself and you're not having fun and you're not having a good time and you're not enjoying it, what changed from when you were working for somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think that all of us that own a business can say that we're kind of partially retired. Because if you think about it, retirement is you get up when you want, you do what you want during the day, and then you don't have to answer to a boss. So, owning a business kind of at least falls with one or two of those things on that list.
Yeah, unless you're client facing, then you have 10. Then you have 10 bosses. Not that I don't.
Yeah.
But you trade one boss for many.
You answer to everybody.
I mean, I have 15, so
you have 13.
They're all the board of directors.
You got customers. You got your chamber members. So that's that's a boss unto itself.
That is true. That is very true.
What do you guys have coming up in terms of like live events?
So we kick our first one off this coming Tuesday. That'll be Inspire. That is the program we launched about 3 years ago, where we have 4 successful women tell their story. So actually, it's pretty timely with this podcast. But basically, we don't have them tell their business stories because you can hear those anywhere. We go for deep personal stories in this event. One of the ones that stands out to me the most is a banker here in the St. Matthews area, Tracy Reed with Independence. who told the story of putting a baby up for adoption, and then 20
Mm,
something years later, the baby shows up on her doorstep looking for her mom.
mm.
Wow.
That's the kind
Wow.
of stories we hear. So really excited about the one Tuesday because she's a former board member, good friend of ours, Christy Smallwood with Eagle Eye Strategies. We're going to roll out of that one and then start hitting our typical monthly stuff. New member orientations going live, um, the 505 after hours at the end of June is going to be in Norton Commons, so we're pretty excited to go hang out there. Maria
Hmm.
Living is going to host that. But we're also going to keep some of our virtual stuff going too. Like our business luncheon is going to stay virtual. We've been taking people on an experience. So
Mhm.
this month we're going to Holiday World, and there'll be 3 of us on site shooting the guy talking about Holiday World, what's happening out there. And then when that's done, I'm going to go ride rides and go have some fun because Chamber's paying me to go out there. So why not?
That's a nice little theme park they've got up there.
Yeah, yeah. And I love it because it's family owned. So,
Mhm.
what a great way for a chamber to support something. But yeah, I mean, we're starting to slowly roll out programming and events. We've got our prospects and promos, which is our sales and marketing series. That's going to be a hybrid event, so you can attend live or virtually. That's June 15th, 8:30 to 10. We're going to talk social media at that one. All of this stuff you can find on our website, stmatthewschamber.com. But I mean, our
Mhm.
goal is to get people back out because I don't know about most of our membership, but I'm tired of being trapped in the office and I'm tired of being trapped at home sometimes.
Yeah.
So I know they are too.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm glad you guys are keeping some of the virtual stuff, just purely from like a schedule management standpoint. Going to a live event, you're looking at a few hours versus doing a virtual event. You're looking at an hour, and it's just kind of manageable. But at the same time, you're more than likely going to get better outcomes by seeing somebody face to face and meeting and having that opportunity. So I like the hybrid approach. I'm glad you guys are not going hard lined in one direction or the other.
No,
I,
it's
I
it's
thought
too hard to.
Hmm.
I thought it was interesting, Josh. You mentioned this event you're having in Norton Commons. Has St. Matthew's? Do you have any members that have businesses in Norton Commons that are members of St. Matthew's Chamber? Is that something you guys have been kind of seeking out?
We have members all over. So we do have a couple at Norton Commons, but I mean, our membership spans 258 zip codes in 7 states. So
Wow.
Mm.
uh, some out of Indiana, some in Tennessee. I know we've got one in California,
Hmm.
which is a web-based company that they literally joined on the website. I've never met them, never seen them, but hey, they're on the
Yeah.
roster, so I get to count them.
Right.
Most of our membership, though, is in the metro area.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
A lot of folks, I mean, as I got into more chambers, and I think Jason, you probably were the one who told me, but I didn't know chambers offered like benefits, like for like health insurance and helping with retirement and HR type things and all that stuff. So that's a perk that I don't think most people are aware of. And that's probably why you get those out of state people mostly, right? Or maybe they're just trying to get into a market city.
I think it's more they want to get into our area, but the ones in Kentucky that are scattered throughout the entire state, most of those are because of our health insurance program. It's an Anthem program. They can save a couple of $1,000 a month on health insurance.
Wow.
Hmm.
You just have to
Yeah.
have 2 to 150 employees and be headquartered in Kentucky, and they can buy right into it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh
so
my
it's
God.
definitely helped our statewide approach. But most of the folks we pick up, it's because they want to get into Louisville.
Right.
I mean, one of our northernmost members is US Foods out of Indy, and their local rep told me flat out the whole reason they joined was because they're trying to get to restaurants in the Louisville area. And
Hmm.
what better way to do it than through the chamber?
Right.
Well,
Right.
I guess when you think about it, the way just from a location standpoint, where the St. Matthew's Chamber is, where it's located. I mean, you're right at the edge of like Nulu. You push up against that. I mean, and the whole east side of Louisville is still growing and expanding. So you guys are pretty well positioned geographically to be attractive to some of these businesses who may not actually have a physical presence here, but they want to engage with businesses in a part of, I guess, Kentucky or Louisville that is growing, that's vibrant. At least it seems that way anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're the sweet spot. I mean, I'm 20 minutes from Southern Indiana. I'm, 5 minutes from Hurstbourne. I guess it depends upon how fast you drive. But I mean that's part of the perk of working in the community I do is we can be just about anywhere in the city in less than a half an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're a business and you're not a part of the Chamber of St. Matthews, really consider it. I mean, we've been, John and I've talked about, even with Mitch, we've enjoyed, coming in, the experiences we've had, the leads groups that you offer, because some businesses obviously join a chamber because they kind of want to not, network to make sales, to make connections in order to grow their business, which is sort of the point. So I've been really impressed with how you guys have done. You give attention to that. You keep it fun. You offer those benefits, but you haven't let go of the main reason and the value of some that is leads, being able to help generate those by making those connections and then creating an ecosystem for it. That's really the big thing that impressed me that John and I talked about. Is like, yeah, we're gonna go and join because of that. So
Yeah, I mean, that's really what this is all about, right? It's about building those relationships and gaining those leads
mhm.
after you build those. And the one thing you guys have done well, especially in the leads group that John's in, you guys have built great relationships. And what some would see as competitors, you guys have found ways to work together, which I think is a testament to that group in particular, but to really what the chamber tries to do every day.
Yeah, I don't know if we just got a good group or what, but it wasn't super difficult to to build those relationships, and everybody was super, out of the gate. Like you said, some of the people who, in some cases, might view us as competitors, actually, were the ones who were like, "I want to talk to you, and I want to figure out how we can work together, how we can better serve the chamber and the group and the market in general." So that group in general, to me, from my experience, has been definitely super positive. We've gotten some referrals out of it already, and some good ones too. So it's like, that's what you ask for out of a chamber, and it happened within a couple months of joining. So
Yeah.
that's a testament to you guys doing a good job.
Those words.
I mean, I think the one of the thing for us, because we're positioned as a branding agency, is like, what do you guys do? It's like digital brand management is something that encompasses everything, including marketing. So when we get into a group and we find that there's a marketer there or a web designer, developer there, that's fine. I mean, we work with that. We don't. That's not our pillar. That's we kind of sit 50,000 feet above that, if you will, because it's all about the message and the tone and everything. Like, and a lot of people are like, well, what does that look like? And a lot of times you have to kind of experience it to kind of get it. But boy, I tell you what, when you start putting out ads, or when you get that site developed and you start reading through it, the copy and how people interact with it, the feedback you get, and then you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm glad I invested into that. So we try to work with other vendors and not try to be this like, here, competition, go away. That's just not my philosophy, because, Mitch and I, when we got together about this crazy little idea, um, we come up with a thing called the Nerd Work, and just working with other nerds in Louisville. And it's just our little network. It's like our little people, our little space, because yeah, you can go to Upwork, you can go to Fiverr, you can do whatever you want with that. But to have somebody there that you can talk to that knows you and is kind of like working through us with, John as our account manager or director of accounts, rather. I mean, it just is a different experience in that way. So our business is very relational, regardless of the services or the what's that we do, you know. And we're very happy to kind of be in a chamber that we've met people that get that, and
Mhm.
it's been amazing. I really am impressed.
Yeah, I mean, people say it all the time, but there's plenty of work to go around. There's plenty of web work. There's more than we could possibly, feasibly take on, and there's tons of types of projects and even branding projects that we don't necessarily, we're not a fit for, and that's okay. We like that. I think there's a ton of value in being able to connect people and connect the right people to the other right people. That in and of itself is like a business.
Yeah.
and that's how you get the reciprocation and all that. So that's the approach we take. I'm glad to see that a lot of the members within the chamber, from my experience at least, definitely take that approach at the moment, and they're always looking for opportunities to help each other get work. Um, yeah, I mean, everybody I've met, had one-on-ones with, everything has been, it's been very unselfish. I'll put it that way. The chamber is very unselfish, and I think that's uncommon.
It
Sadly,
is.
I really do. I think it's uncommon in chambers, especially, but just in general in the marketplace, I think it is. People do kind of naturally default a lot of times to that kind of dog eat dog. I do my stuff, stay away from it type of mentality, and it's good to find a big group of people like we have in the chamber to, who don't take that mentality. So, props to you all. It's a culture thing. I mean, it's top down from just like any other organization. So, whatever you all are doing, keep doing it.
Yep.
Just trying to give opportunity. That's what the goal is every day.
Yeah. Well, now that we've loved on Josh a lot in the chamber, let's touch on the BrandBit a little bit. We usually try to come up with a little bit of something like what's happening in the world of branding, who rebranded, who got a new logo, who bought who did what, and if it's nerd related, that's cool. I think the last one we did we've been actually the last two we've done have been a lot about EV vehicles. It's just like electric vehicles.
ATM machine.
Yeah.
Electric vehicles.
Yeah. So EVs are they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to come in here to stay. And so we did the last one was on the Ford Lightning. But kind of curious, John, what we got this week?
Well, I think I shared it earlier this week, and the deal finally got through. Amazon has fully purchased MGM Studios, which is kind of in the nerd realm, I think, in some ways.
Whole Bond franchises with MGM.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was reading up on it, and there seems to be a lot of question marks still of exactly what titles are going to get to move to Amazon Prime Video. Is obviously the big pull for why they did that, why they made the purchase. But there's some question marks because the Bond film franchise is actually owned by a small production company, the Eon Productions.
Right.
Company.
Eon Productions. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of unclarity on are the classic MGM films going to be there, like Wizard of Oz and things like that. They're saying not to expect those out of the gate. It's not going to be that simple of a switch, and you're going to have all these new titles and classics on Amazon Prime. But I thought it was it's kind of a testament to where Amazon is going in general. And I think we've talked about it in the past. Everybody views Amazon still as this e-commerce marketplace, and it is. I don't think that's going anywhere. But a lot of people kind of don't know that the server, the AWS, is like their cash cow. That's where they make the bulk of their money. They're constantly diversifying and trying to get away from being purely that e-commerce marketplace. Especially with Shopify coming, you can kind of see that Amazon's making moves to buying Whole Foods, being in grocery. Now they're in movie production heavily. Not that they weren't before with Amazon Prime, but it's an interesting thing to watch, the way they're treating sellers on their marketplace and the moves they're making otherwise with their business. It's almost like they're making that strategic shift away from relying, on the commerce side of things. What do you guys think?
I think that the predictions of seeing these big corporations running movie studios was correct. I think somebody predicted that 5 years ago because, when Disney started gobbling up things, they took Lucasfilm, they took Fox, and, they even have Pixar, to be on topic here a bit, but, and then it's just Disney, the house of the mouse, the house of the mouse, right? And then you got AT&T that kind of took, Time Warner and Warner Brothers Studios. And I don't think there's Paramount and Universal. Mitch, maybe but I think they're kind of still on their own. Because Paramount's got sci-fi franchises I'm gonna say it's Star Trek, and then Universal, they've got all the monsters horror movies,
right? All the classic 30s monster franchises: Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, The
yeah.
Mummy.
So it's like, it's like these are businesses that are making these big strategic moves for a reason. So it doesn't matter what size business you are or what you're doing. I mean, it's like if you kind of like get away from the whole entertainment part of it and movie part of it and start thinking about it from a business stance. I mean, you got Netflix that's producing movies, and I don't know if they've got a studio, but it would make sense for Amazon to be like, you know what? Let's just buy MGM. Now we got a movie studio. Now we're going to make original content because Netflix has been doing original content probably at a loss.
Well, I mean, and Amazon's they've been doing original content. I mean, there's the whole Jack Ryan series. There's several others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when they first started doing it, I mean, there was a Jean-Claude Van Damme series that had one season, but apparently it didn't do well enough to get a second. But yeah, it's like, I can't remember who jumped in first, Netflix or Amazon. But yeah, look at the infrastructure that Amazon has acquired now with MGM.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too. There's all kinds of wires crossed because MGM apparently has a licensing deal with the Paramount Plus, the CBS. So they have some kind of licensing, but then, you look at MGM and you think of things like The Wizard of Oz is an MGM film that's actually owned by Warner Media.
Yep. And Gone with the Wind and several of the other classics.
And that streams on HBO Max. So, like I said, you're not going to get this. You're not just going to lift everything that MGM ever did and put it on Amazon Prime, which I think is probably the perception. But maybe that's where they're trying to get to, or they just needed studio. They just needed a production company that knew what they were doing.
Well, even with all those classic properties that may not be shifting, because like you said, John, the kind of the partnerships they have with other entities, their library is still huge.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the library of the library that they can move is going to be pretty incredibly vast. I think I've got 75,000. I think I don't know. It was some astronomical number I thought I saw. I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Now, I don't know about you, a lot of you guys, but I go through, I still, even with Netflix, even with Amazon Prime, even with Disney Plus and whatever else, some of these places may have big libraries. I mean, Amazon's library of films that you can access is pretty huge. But there's still some pretty big holes because a lot of the stuff they have, it's movies you've never heard of before. There's a lot of foreign and European stuff that maybe you're not as familiar with. So it'll be interesting. Be interesting to see how that addition to the library kind of injects new life. Maybe.
Yeah, Josh, what streaming service do you hang your hat on that you like to just that's your first go-to?
I mean, for me, it's Amazon because I'm a Prime member. Yes, I work for a chamber, and yes, I use Amazon. Catch grief for that all the time. But here's the thing: a lot of local companies put their products out there, so I don't take too much grief for that. It's ironic that you guys mentioned the variety of platforms, though, because this week our staff spent a little time watching movies, not because we were goofing off, but because we're launching a movie series later this year. And we had to preview some movies before we put them on the list to make sure that they were okay for families. But we had to track down the Goonies, which was probably the hardest one to find.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
And we finally
Where did you find it?
It was on HBO Max, I think. But talk about a movie that, we forgot how bad the language was in that movie. We sat down to watch it, and we're like, in front of families.
Well, it's such a classic.
Oh,
it is.
Totally
it is.
But man,
you watch it and you go like, wow, Josh Brolin's really old. It's like, I mean, let's be honest. He's for those that don't know, he's Thanos. He's the main villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or was. Spoilers.
And Cable.
And Cable and Fox there for Deadpool. But it's like, man, I mean, he was like 20s, 30s then. It's just kind of funny. Very stoic guy, I guess. Just kind of aged a little bit. He aged very well. Let me put it that way. But it's kind of surprising. So
we kind of look at the entire cast and look at them now, and it's like, man, I mean, it doesn't feel like it was produced that long ago, but you start looking at the characters from the movie and you go, dang, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
There's something, I mean, being my age, being middle-aged, I mean, I remember growing up and it was, it wasn't that unusual to watch movies on television that were in black and white. Okay. And that kind of lended an age factor to it. Anything that was shot in black and white as a film looked old. Well, we jumped away from black and white films a long, long time ago. So now the bulk of film that you take in, even on the streaming service, it's all in color and it's vivid and it's bright. So you see these actors in like The Goonies, in a film that was shot in the 80s, and you see them and you look at them there. And then you see them in a film that they've made in the last 5. It is jarring because they're so vividly young in something you just watched a couple of days ago, and then you see them now. It's like, what's happened to time? Time has lost any meaning.
Yeah, because I mean, we've all had enough time ourselves at home during the pandemic to actually sit and watch and consume more media. And we've been, I think a lot of people have been deep diving into some of that content and libraries and looking at that again. I mean, it's through Netflix, looking at I guess the popular, some old stuff has come up in 80s and 90s releases that I remember. And I'm sorry, I was back then a fan of Hugh Grant, but yeah, the movies, the quality of the acting and everything is not what I remember it. So we all had kind of that fog of like, and then we watch it today and we're like, oh, that's bad. Like, for anybody out there that's like in the vein of like Lord of the Rings, sci-fi, fantasy, if you were a fan of Xena, Warrior Princess, or Hercules back in the day, you were like, yeah, this is cool, and Xena does her thing, Lucy Lawless is awesome, yeah, but you watch that now, man, that did not age well. That really just did not age well. It's really, really bad. But there are a few movies that still hold up. I mean, going far back as 2008. Like for us, Iron Man, the first one. You can watch that one. That still holds up. I don't really. You don't have to have seen the rest of those movies afterwards. You can just watch that one and have just a really good time. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man series.
It
No.
does. It does. It does.
Yeah, I'm with Josh. I'm like,
it does. With possible exception of the third one, the first two, especially the second one, especially the second Spider-Man, Sam Raimi Spider-Man, to me is still it's quality-wise, it's right there with anything Marvel's done since. It's pretty doggone good. That they got everything clicked with that one. It still holds up. Now go back and watch. I dare you, go back and watch any of the original two. Of course, they haven't made anymore. Well, yeah, they have the original 2 Fantastic Four films. Go back and watch them. That's an effort.
No,
that's an effort.
Those didn't happen. I don't care what they are. None of those happened.
Well, and not even to think of the Josh Trank versions that came out afterward.
No, that didn't happen. There has never been a Fantastic Four film that I would go and watch and go like, yeah, that was good. So.
And we're not having a test of the Fantastic Four on the podcast.
I like Reed Richards. I like the characters. I mean, they're like the original like superhero family, But why can't anybody get that right? So maybe now that we're owned by Disney, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is, I mean, when superhero movies first came out, we were very forgiving because the technology was what it was, and for the time, the technology and everything was cutting edge for the time. So it seemed good at the time. But like you said, Jason, because of how far we've come in storytelling, in visual storytelling, in that, let's say, 10, 15-year period, it's astounding. I mean, it's how much more they can do and how much more they can create and paint on a screen. It blows anything that happened in that previous era away. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Storytelling is not like, it's like the story is never a static thing, like in your business, you have a story to tell on how you got started in business, why you're in business, which is sort of key for us and what we do. We help you articulate that and tell that, because not all of us are Hemingways. So it's like, but it evolves. It can evolve. It still has this core base. Like Batman still has his parents murdered, in that story. There's still some tenets in that story that are there, but Batman is a character, a franchise, a product that has had so many retellings that still engages, but still has your basic tenets in place. And so I think that that's the thing about storytelling. Like you talk about MGM and The Wizard of Oz. You know, Once Upon a Time now doesn't really fit. So if you think about that, no movie's starting out like that anymore. You know, so if you're so here's where we get kind of into the main topic of the show. I know, really, like a half hour later, Jason, but that's kind of how that works, and we'll be brief with it. But what are some examples to give to introduce your business or your brand in a few short statements? It doesn't have to be our brand or Josh, it doesn't have to be the chamber, but like what are some, maybe some tips on how to do that? Cuz brevity is sometimes we all struggle with. I know I do.
I mean, I think for me, it's what we talk about all the time. You got to get away from talking about what you do. It's fine to incorporate that into your pitch, your spiel, or elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it. But the more time you spend focused on telling other people what you do, the more time they're tuning out because they hear you. That's awesome. Why does that matter to me?
Exactly.
I mean, it's. I think we beat a dead horse with it, but it needs to be beat.
Yeah.
That
It
you
bears
have
beating more.
you have to figure out why you exist. I mean, why does your business exist, and what's unique about that? And it doesn't have to be this incredible you know millennium you know revolutionizing type of thing. It just needs to be particular. It needs to be clear, and it needs to be authentic to you. To me, it's easier said than done. So
Oh yeah.
it is what it is. But to me, that's
It's like,
if you can shy away from talking about what you do so much, that's the number one tactic to me that I start mentally thinking about. Just ignore all that. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, you have to tell people what you do, but that's not what's going to. It's like, to your point, that's not what's going to hook people, because a lot of people do what you do. Okay, what differentiates what you do? It's what, like John was saying. It's the why. What was that emotional tug in your heart and in your soul that made you think this is something that people are going to be interested in, that's going to improve their life, that is going to improve their business, that's going to make their life better, that is going to be gratifying for them to engage with. And to do that, you have to tell your story and do it in such a way that it reaches people on an emotional level. Because you can throw facts at people all day long, but until you hit an emotional chord with someone, they're not going to act on those facts. Those facts aren't going to matter to them unless you have an emotional attachment that makes it relevant to their personal existence. So to John's point, that's where you want to put the energy and the time and the thought. What is the story about my brand, my service, my entity that's going to resonate in people's, not just their heart, not just their mind, but it's going to resonate in their heart and make them think, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Josh, I think
Yeah,
you were going to say
and
something.
I was sitting here thinking, I have members that have been a member of the chamber for almost as long as we've been in existence. So that's 65 years, right? Or 67 years. One of those is a bakery in St. Matthews. Now, you can pretty much throw a stone at 3 different bakeries in St. Matthews, but there's one that is set apart from all the others because of their rich history, and that's
I know
Plains.
who it is.
And the beauty about Plains is they don't have to tell you what they do. Their story is all about the many generations of the family that built that thing from blood, sweat, and tears.
Hmm.
I've got another member that works for a nonprofit, Mattingly Edge, and they work with individuals with disabilities. And it's not so much where they came from or who they are, it's the passion of the staff to help individuals with disabilities have a life like you and I have. So it's not a matter of, oh, you have a disability, you have to go to a day camp in the middle of the day. It's no, we can get you a job, we can utilize the skills you have, and we can help you get a house. And so your story is not always about what you do, it's how you're impacting people, it's how you've been in
Exactly.
community for years. Um, I've got tons of members. I could go through hundreds of examples, but I mean, there's just two right off the cuff that I always think of.
Hmm.
Even the chamber I used to work for, which is over here in Indiana, because I live in Indiana, they've got a member that started her business literally in her garage If you know L&D Mailmasters, Diane started it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
her garage, and her husband said one day, "You have got to get this stuff out of the garage. I want my garage back." Now she owns 3 buildings in Southern Indiana and does all the printing, promo products, the whole 9 yards. But talk about a story. I mean, you start your business in your garage, and the whole reason you springboarded is because your husband told you to get it out. I mean, that's storytelling to a T, right?
Right.
yep, yep,
Well, people
yep.
can
Well,
identify with it. You know,
yeah,
like you said, it's you got to give people something to work with that resonates in their lives. And it, we're throwing out cliches left and right, but it's how does that why impact your customer, not how does it benefit you? Not
Mhm.
even how does it necessarily benefit the customer from like a feature standpoint. To what Mitch was saying, it's like how does that improve their life? How does it take away some stress, some
Hmm.
anxiety? How does it? I don't know what you're saying, Jason, about moving people. You can either move people closer to pleasure or farther from pain. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's
that's a good
good.
way to really boil it down and say, how does your product, how does your service do that?
Yeah, there was a story that I was told, and this is how sales works. So this guy's at work and he gets a promotion. So he can't he gets on the phone. He because he can't really scream and holler because he's does the other people around him, they're not having as success as he is. So he's trying to be nice about that. But he gets on the phone, calls his wife, and so she can do all the screaming. So he's gonna come home. So what he does, they want to move closer to pleasure, right? So what he does, he goes to the store and he buys a bottle of wine. And instead of buying the $10 bottle of wine, he gets the $20. They're both the same. It doesn't matter. But for some reason, because it's a special occasion, he gets the $20 bottle of wine, and he spends extra money as well on steak, when the regular steak or whatever would have been just fine as well. So he spends all this money, goes home, eats the meal, they drink the wine together, they have sex, and then they wake up the next morning and the couple is hungover, pain. So what he does, because it's early in the morning and everything like that, and she's upset because she has a headache and we got to fix this migraine. He goes down to the store that's like down the road just from there, not to the actual like pharmaceutical store or whatever, just a gas station basically, and overpays for Tylenol. And then goes back and then they relieve the pain because they took the Tylenol. And the moral of the story is they overspent both times to move closer to pleasure and further from pain. So the idea is like customers have money to spend. Like that's not the issue. It's why they're spending it. And you've got to be there to figure out like how to help them spend it wisely. And that's kind of the key to sell to me when you're selling something. You're there to help. You're like, wait, you don't have to buy the $20 bottle of wine. The $10 fine. Just get that, go home, have a good time, and you won't wake up with a hangover, and that saves the pain. Because when you're trying to move away from pain, what happens is you just grab the nearest thing, hence the store that he went to. And that's another big mistake that happens that I've often seen. And that was kind of like the story that was behind what John illustrated. I can't believe you remembered that though, man. That's been a long, long time ago. I think I told that.
I didn't remember the story at all. Oddly enough, the storytelling aspect, but I remember it now that you said it again, which is back to the point. Like you got to tell your story a
Yeah,
bunch of times for people to remember. But at the end of the day, yeah, I'm gonna remember the takeaway, which was the value, which is the same as what's going to happen in a sales
exactly.
scenario with anybody. Um, I thought it's a great way to boil down sales in particular, but it's a great way to boil down branding because at the end of the day, your brand either needs to express how you're going to give that person a more pleasurable life or take away, a specific pain that they have or do both, I mean, they go hand in hand, but, um, yeah, I mean, to me, that's the big takeaway when you're talking about storytelling and examples of how to get your brand to really get through the garbage of focusing on what you do. And because it doesn't matter, nobody cares. Everybody understands you're a roofing company. They don't understand how you're going to help them with the insurance and
Right.
how good of a job you're going to do and if the crew is going to show up on time. Like they know you do roofing and gutters and siding and all that stuff. I mean, that's a given, and you can find that from 50 other companies. But it's the going into more detail that's really going to get somebody to choose you over somebody else.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
It's
trust.
it,
look at Chambers
it's
and
it,
you
Go ahead,
got
Josh.
You got how many of them? 10 chambers in Louisville easily, right?
Mhm.
So the first question I always get, and I think I even got it from Jason, was something along the lines of what sets you guys apart from all the others, right? And I can go 1,000 directions with that in most cases, but I usually like to know who I'm talking to so I can target it towards them, right? But usually my number one answer is, how many chambers do you know that do community events? Not very many. Most of what they do are business events. The second piece of that is, we're a relationship chamber. If you think you're going to walk in the door and immediately make money off of one of our members, you're wrong, because they want to get to know you, not your business, you. And you guys illustrated that perfectly for me earlier. I don't feel like I need to say much more there, but you have to know who you are in order to tell your story effectively. And if you don't know who you are, that's going to be really hard to convey that message, and it's going to come across like a sales pitch.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too
I think the
mechanical.
common point this all. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's just it comes across very mechanical and cold and and I think all businesses struggle with trying not to do that, what we call brochurees. I mean, we all do because there's this animal out there that John and Mitch hate that is the Googles. And, they do need it needs to because how
I
you
love
up
the
here.
Googles.
Well, yeah, I know, but from a copy standpoint, I mean, it's like
Oh, you
how
mean
you
writing for the Googles?
yeah, you have to if you Google yourself, you do a branded search, which upcoming shows we're going to have a guest on who um, is from England and is that's kind of his thing, and he's written for Search Engine Journal and for a few other SEO popular blogs and does it himself. He's kind of a big cat in the arena of SEO, and kind of like what we had with Diana Richardson, who was on the show previously from SEMrush. And so, but he's gonna, branded search terms, when people look at you or you look at yourself and how you look on the search engine, you can be really pleased with that, or you can be embarrassed as hell. So we try to help that too. And it's something that's come up a lot because it's been neglected, due to the obvious reasons. So, I think John's written, we do have articles out there about like Google Business, your Google Business page, how important that is to communicate, as things open up. You can go through Josh and talk to Josh and say, hey, Josh, tell everybody I'm open. And then Josh is going to say, hey, they're open. And then they're going to probably forget that conversation and then go to Google and look at the business page and go like, well, it says hours closed. Yeah. And then Josh is like just throwing his hands in the air. He's like, well, I
Right.
did what you said.
Well, I think the central point, that all this directs you to is that you have what's going to make you stand out isn't your features and benefits. It isn't your logo. It's not the name of your company. It's your story, because your story tells people why you matter
Yeah. Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to get that from the internets. They're going to get that from social. They're going to get that from these channels, because SEO is a channel. I know what I just said was a channel, not a strategy. And so, like I really do appreciate John, because what he does, he kind of makes sure that like our tag is at NerdBrand Agency everywhere. You want to find us on a social media network, look for NerdBrand Agency, the at NerdBrand Agency. I'll say it again, the at NerdBrand Agency. Find us everywhere. And
What was that again?
but but then there's also the copy that you write. You get your little brief description about who you are. That really matters and it's limited for a reason, for brevity, and for what you do. So if you're listing, like John said, all the what's, well, you sound like everybody else. So it's probably a really good place to kind of focus on, have somebody like us kind of come in and really like try to sharpen that, because that's a first impression they might get of you. So yeah, story matters because it goes across all mediums. Um, we mostly see it in print, but now in digital, yeah, yeah. If you want to stand out, it's got to be something top of mind now.
To me, that's what's important to take away too, is kind of the integrated approach. Like, you're going to be out in the marketplace, you're going to be doing sales pitches in person, you're going to be running campaigns, and then people are going to go on the internet and they're going to look for you, and they're going to try to find what they heard about, especially if it was kind of more of just an advertisement, or they hear about you on the radio, or they see an ad, or just somebody mentions them in passing at a networking event, whatever it is. They're going to head to Google and social networks, and they're They're going to try to find what they heard about, and whatever story they heard out there needs to resonate. It needs to be aligned with what you see in that search result. To some degree, obviously, there's very strict limitations on, how much you can do that, but having things like video in the search results that accurately aligns with whatever is out in the marketplace, the description you were talking about, Jason, the titles of your web pages, needs to speak the same language, needs to be having some of the key terms that you're out there sharing with people in the marketplace, so that there's just that connection. They know who they're talking to. They know that they're about to go, a step further in that experience. And it's not linear either. I think to me, that's a mistake people make too. They think the sales process is very linear, and it's not. It's like go forward, take 3 steps back. Let's pause for 4 months. Then maybe we'll go Google you and figure out again what you do, because we forgot. And it's just this constant back and forth. And you need to have that in mind as you're putting a thread out there.
Mm-hmm.
That common thread needs to be flowing consistently across your different channels and out in the world. And it's stuff we say all the time, but and it's hard to do. It's not something that we don't present it to me as just this easy thing to do, and you hire us and we know what to do and everything's perfect and everybody goes home happy. It's not. It's a day-to-day constant, oh crap, that's out of alignment, let's open up a project and fix it.
Yeah, because that happens. Like, I mean, if you lose your car keys, you're going to lose your login to something that you signed up for, and that's out there. And then you go look. Like our podcast, John keeps hitting me up. Like a few days ago, you were like, "Hey, this is on SoundCloud," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's an old episode. I need to update that." And then you found like another syndicated outlet with it on there, and I had to go fix the RSS feed to get that corrected. Just little stuff like that communicates to the search engine, like, no, because that was broke. It was an old feed from 2016. I mean, the podcast ran from 2016 and 17. It was a different show, different hosts, same premise, sort of, but that's the feed that it was latched onto, and it stopped syncing, but it still had old shows. So I had to rehook everything to the new one, which basically Google now goes, oh, there's new stuff, and those are. I don't think they're getting counted as backlinks, but the fact that they're on the index and they're there when somebody searches for something based on the title of the show, that's kind of important that we have that correct and it's not out of sync and somebody think it's a different NerdBrand or something. So, there's all those little details that you find as you go. It's why it's like digital brand management is not something that just happens once and it's done. It never ends. It really never ends.
Right.
So,
that's just one example.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you got to constantly have to work it, right? I mean, that's what we did through the pandemic. I mean, I kept finding ways to put our brand out there more and more. And weirdly enough, one of the areas we've done it best is through that Facebook Live event on Wednesdays called Fresh Out of the Box Trending Topics. Because the next thing I knew, that thing was getting shared left and right. And we were reaching 1,000 people on 1 hour long program. And it bumped us up a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, and you got to keep doing that too, because I mean, how many times have we all gone to look at something? Like I think the quota is still the same. It's like 8 to 12 times somebody will look at something or before they make a decision. So you got like 8 to 12 times is why you have that sales cycle, like John explained. It's because they're once they get into the decision process, that's great, but because they do it once doesn't mean you've won. And a lot of businesses kind of want that immediate return because we all want immediate satisfaction, but they're going to come back and come back and come back. And if they keep coming back and it's not consistent, their decisions been made by you inadvertently.
Go ahead, Mitch. What were you saying?
No. Well, it's just that this is just goes on, just support the whole idea that it's a constant mechanism because you're constantly creating new content. I mean, the content's the hot word right now because it's true. You've got to be constantly putting new content out there because it's not an immediate decision because it's a cycle. Yeah, you've made one sale, okay, but you've got your next sale that you've got to prep for. It's a never ending circle. It's not a sprint where you have a start and a stop. It's always moving, which is why you've got to constantly have your attention toward putting out new information, new content, fresh material that's going to engage people.
Yeah, and content is not social media. Again, that's not, you've got email, you've got print, anything digital. Your website. We say at NerdBrand what? Who's going to answer that one first? What's
We
one
say
of
a
our
lot of things.
Yeah, we say a lot of things. But
Obviously.
one of our main thing is for our how is that everything is an ad. Everything you do is an ad. This is an ad right here. Josh, you got one behind you, cleverly placed, and on your shirt. Yeah, no, it's hard to kind of like do that, isn't it, man? You feel like the people like. Could you imagine? I start to sympathize with meteorologists now because they're pointing backwards because they got that whole green screen thing going. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I mean everything's an ad, so content fits there. That's it. That's what that is. It's not this mysterious. It's really not this mysterious thing. What we're creating here is content.
Hmm.
I mean, we'll take this show, I'll bust it up into like teasers and clips and things like that. John and Mitch, they create copy and art, and that kind of goes out as well. Not just video clips, right? There's just all kinds of things to do for content to kind of get your name out there. And regardless if it's a channel that you're putting it out on social media or the biggest one right now, Google. I mean, you still have other traditional channels to think about and not forget. And one of John's favorites is obviously email, and he could go on for a while about that.
Because it gets forgotten, sadly. It's still by far one of the best channels, highest converting channels, and it always will be. Even now, people are still getting on text messaging, and that'll die down. Emails, especially for B2B, it's still where in e-commerce, it's still where we see the most results. Um, I think kind of one last thing for me, at least, Mitch mentioned that you got to be putting content out there to engage people. And I think a lot of people don't really know what that means. Kind of, what do you mean by engagement? We're not talking about like purely likes and comments and things like that. It's more like reducing skepticism. Because when I see somebody in the feed for the first time and it's something that I might need and I might buy, I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. At least for me, I'm a very skeptical, kind of frugal person. If you're asking me to part with money, like immediately anxiety goes up. And, I know there are a lot of people who aren't like that, but probably 50% of the population, maybe more, is like, that's my money. I've worked hard for it. I'm not just going to hand it away. But the more times, to your point, Jason, that they see you, that they see that you care about delivering a good product,
Mm-hmm.
that they see you, sharing a consistent message that you're like, it builds confidence that, okay, this company or this service or product can do what it says. I mean, it's really that simple. So if I see somebody if I see a company in the Instagram feed 20 times versus just seeing them once 3 months ago, like I'm probably going to go with the company that I've seen 20 times and seen 3 different testimonials, seen 4 different ads, and whether people think advertising works on them or not, it does. Like it
Well, it's
does.
like,
If you consume it, it's in your head. It may not be something that you long over and sit there for hours and think about, but it's a factor. When you go to buy, you're going to naturally move toward the product that you're most familiar with, that you feel like you have a relationship with. So that's, to me, kind of a way to think about engaging. And when you're creating content, it's not about getting comments and likes. It's about reducing the skepticism in the buyer or the member or whatever it may be.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good brand storytelling does the one thing that we tell customers, and we did it in a meeting yesterday. The biggest thing we do to help brands is help them cultivate credibility. So having a strong brand story builds that credibility that John was just talking about with people, that makes them want to buy from you. It's pretty simple.
Yep.
It's not easy. Simple.
Yeah.
Well,
Simply
not well.
profound
The
and profoundly.
principle. I'm talking about the principle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's simply profound and profoundly simple, and it's hard to do. But Josh, we think you guys at the chamber are great. I think the work that you all have done, the culture that you're creating there. I'm excited for when there's live events. So as we close out, one last time, let the people know where they can find you, and floor is yours for a little bit as we close out.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today. If you are looking to check into the chamber, it's stmatthewschamber.com is our website. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and soon to be TikTok. I'm going to turn us into a TikTok sensation, so we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
You got to wear
Break
your
out the
Woody
boy
outfit.
band wig.
Just read that here, but we'll save that for a live event. But we'd love to have you visit us. Like I said, we do have our first couple of live events coming up in June. You can find all those on our website as well. And if you're interested in the leads group, I got 4. And these are all referral based groups. And these guys know that real well because we've already talked about that. So, again, just thanks for having me and thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having you on. And for those out there listening, I think I said enough that at NerdBrand Agency is where you can find us online, or nerdbrandagency.com/podcast if you want to listen or watch this show. We are on YouTube, so be sure to go to YouTube. Please like and subscribe. And you can click, I'll even do this. You can click the bell to get notifications on the next episode. That's actually very handy if you actually are a fan. And we have met a few fans of the show. We want to thank you, and you know who you are, for watching and staying tuned to us and enjoying it as much as we enjoy recording it and doing it. So hopefully we also will be recording somewhere live. Who knows? We would love to do a live event and be there and do it live. It's the
Awesome.
video camera thing would be the trick that we're working out. Audio, because audio's easy. At least to me, it's easy. You show up, have a table, have a laptop, have a microphone, fire up GarageBand. That's what you got to do. But at the end of the day, yeah, I would love to have the podcast at a table, be there, have people on. They can just kind of come in, kind of do that. I actually did it years and years ago at an open house for a business, and people had a lot of fun. We had a little contest, as we were doing it. We streamed on Facebook Live. That's how we did that one. Back then when Facebook started out, Facebook Live started out, rather, I mean, it was, we're talking 2016. It's hard to believe. It's like I blinked and missed it. What'd you say?
I said way back in 2016.
I know, right?
It seems like it.
It does. Like, it blinked and years have gone by and you're just sitting there going wait, what happened? So anyways, appreciate having you on the show, man. Thanks for coming on. We'll definitely do this again sometime. And for all our listeners out there, thank you for listening again. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.